especially if it's like a fucking security update, but they're annoying as fuck.
Yeah.
Especially when you get an update that's actually incompatible because the fucking company is incompetent. And you have to roll back an update until they fix it in the next one.
Yeah. Did you see the video of the wall? Like, so there's like illusory walls in Elden Ring, and you're supposed to be able to just smack them with your hit them and they disappear. Well, there's like some walls that you have to hit like 50 times.
Yeah.
Like there's no indication that it's an illusory wall unless you hit it like 50 times. Well, which of course people are like, what? Like that is bullshit. But apparently it's probably a bug. Like,
I think it's like really funny because I'm talking about illusory walls and stuff. How many people either don't realize or refuse to admit that Dark Souls is just Zelda on hard mode?
Yeah.
Because like even most of the staples to say like Demon Souls and the games after that, almost all of that stuff derives from Ocarina of Time as a game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you know, Breath of the Wild is kind of in between.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that hard, but it's harder than Ocarina of Time.
Which is weird, because you'd think, like, I really like Zelda. You'd think I would be into the Dark Souls games. It's like, nah, but it doesn't really have, like, the shit that draws me to Zelda, right? It's got some of the mechanics and everything, but it's its own beast.
I mean, for me, the problem is the lore is confusing.
Yeah, it's all hidden in item text, too. Like, you have to go to a wiki to actually find out what the story is.
Yeah, and, like, I don't want to do homework for a game. You know, like, I love going to wikis for, like, Stardew Valley, but I didn't need to. I didn't absolutely... I played it for plenty of time before ever looking at the wiki. And then the wiki just enhances it, you know, like, oh, you know, it gives you all these hints and stuff. But, yeah, with Zelda, it's all very straightforward. With this, I really still don't... I played it for like 10 hours, so I know that's not a lot.
Yeah.
But I played the game for like 10 hours so far, and I still don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm like, okay, I mean, I've beaten plenty of bosses, but I don't really know why, or what I'm supposed to be doing, or where I'm supposed to be going. I haven't figured out, like I haven't found any better shields, for instance, and I haven't figured out how to get more heal potions. Like, I've seen people running around with 6 or 7 healing potions. I'm like, I still have the original 4. I'm like, I have no idea how to upgrade that. I don't know.
Well, you know, if you get all the cuckoos for the lady, she'll give you another bottle.
Oh. See, that's, I mean, you know, that would be straightforward. That would be. You know. But, you know, and then she'd stop calling me maidenless all the time.
Yeah.
You are cuckooless.
Cuckooless. Just don't hit the chickens. That's what I've learned. Zelda's actually giving me, like, freaking PTSD that I don't want to hit a chicken in almost any game because somebody might decide they want a Zelda reference.
Yeah. I even had to look up how to switch my weapon from one-handed to two-handed. Which is, it's kind of stupid that you can hold a one-handed weapon two-handed and you can hold a two-handed weapon one-handed.
Yeah, because what it does is, and your stats matter for this, is you get a power, like a strength bonus if you hold any weapon two-handed, but then you get like a dexterity drop, right?
Yeah.
And the issue with that is you should be holding a weapon the way that it is designed to be held, one or two, because the dexterity drop you get from holding a two-handed weapon one-handed is fucking stupid, just like it is in real life.
Yeah, but I had to look it up because you have to you have to hold on the PS5 controller. You have to hold the triangle while pressing the R1 button at the same time in order to switch, to one-handed or two-handed. I'm like, how would I ever? It doesn't say that. Like, I even looked in the control. Like, you can bring up the controls on the screen, and it doesn't say that.
Yeah.
I had to look it up on a website. I was like, what the hell?
So this is actually something that I kind of dislike about the series, is because even with the original Demon Souls, that comes out like at what, PS2 era, I think. And that means this is in the post-internet era of gaming, right? Where you can start to look things up. Even a lot of gaming magazines around that time has started putting some of their articles up on websites, even though magazines were still the predominant way to get information. And cheat books were starting to become predominant as well, but a lot of that stuff started getting on sites like GameFAQs. GameFAQs actually starts blowing up around this time. And they kind of became reliant on the internet. And there's my problem. A lot of modern games have become really reliant on the fact that the internet exists. And that kind of just bothers me. I think it like ruins the immersion of the game, because when you're playing a game, you want to be able to have to only focus on the game that you're playing at hand. Like even an MMO. I remember one of the funny things that they kind of predicted back in .hack. If you go back and watch .hack Sign, the anime, and the whole anime takes place in this game called The World. It was like the big MMO that everybody played. It was just called The World. And you, even if you're playing the .hack games, which predate the anime, you're playing an MMO within the game itself. And if you want to get information about what to do, the game was like notoriously bad or intentionally bad at telling you what to do. It was almost like the game itself was a puzzle. But instead of trying to figure it out, everybody would just go onto the game forums and look up what they were. They would pull up like a BBS bulletin would just like pop up in the screen, like a pop-up window. And they were relying on like other players for everything. And I'm just like, man, but that's how MMOs are now, because they don't give you shit. I'm playing Final Fantasy 14. I know what to do because I've already played through this, but I've got like new friends playing it, and they're like, what the hell am I supposed to do? It's like, oh no, you're supposed to do this, because the game's just really bad at telling you. Like they don't even describe half of your logs in your log menu or what they do or anything like that, which to some degree I like, but also it's not because it's a challenge for you to figure things out. They're just relying on the wikis and shit to give you the information.
Yeah, now I'm getting shit from the chat. GMT says, read the manual, Marsupial.
Yeah.
I did. That's the problem. I read the manual. I read the in-game manual, and it didn't tell me what to do.
Games don't come with instruction manuals anymore.
Yeah.
At least for some time, like PS3 and like Wii U era, they would have digital instruction manuals. Like you could hold the select button on the main menu or whatever, and it would pop up, and you could read like a PDF in the in your freaking console. But they don't do that. Modern, they're just like, fuck manuals. We don't need them anymore. You could just read the internet. Go fuck off.
Yeah, and Dillard says it sounds like I would like an easy mode. I'd like an easy mode when it comes to the lore. Yeah. You know, just tell me what to do, for Christ's sake. I mean, you don't have to make it easy to do. Just tell me what to do. Like, you know, I love at the beginning of Breath of the Wild, you talk to the king and it's like, mission, destroy Ganon. Okay, now I know what the ultimate goal is from the very beginning of the game.
Oh, I just have been informed from Buck, because that was still my old mailing address, that I just got a package from Dillard. Which I have other mail I need to pick up anyway, so whenever I have a functioning vehicle and can make it down there, I guess I'll have to go pick that up.
I've been looking at my door.
Yeah.
Every day. I haven't gotten mine yet. Cool.
Yep.
I wonder what it could be.
I know exactly what it is. I'm assuming, because I doubt there could be anything else that Dillard would send me. I don't know. Maybe he's weird and is just trying to punk me. I wouldn't put it past him.
GMT likes Sonic. I like Sonic too. You go fast. That's the instructions. Go fast.
Yeah, except most Sonic games are actually designed in contrary to that. Like, the character's supposed to go fast, and all the levels are designed to make you go slow.
I know. I hate that.
That's why, like, the Sonic Advance games are the best. Because all the levels are actually designed for speed. In fact, you could end up going so fast that they designed it so that you could run faster than the screen, like the camera could keep up with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I hate how at the end of every Sonic level, you finish every Sonic level with like 2 rings.
Yeah.
And you collected 300 of them, but by the end, you've lost them all because you ran into spikes. Whatever.
Yeah, unless you like have played the map 100 times and have developed like a photographic memory of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then it's like you could go just as fast as Mario if you develop those speedrun mechanics, so it's not like anything particular to Sonic.
Exactly.
But yeah, anyway, welcome to the Vomitorium, episode 132. As always, I am your host, The Metal, and joining me is my co-host, Marsupial Gamer. How you doing today?
Good. Look what I got in the mail. Ta-da!
It's a box.
It's a box.
Yeah.
Can you read that? The
That was
complete
very
90s
reflective.
Cyber Frog.
Oh, cool.
Warts and all. By Vince Skyver. It's very reflective, yeah. Yep. Got this from his eBay store. I missed the Indiegogo of it, but I got it on eBay. So, yeah, shipped fast. In a box.
I have never read a single like issue of Cyberfrog. Yeah, it's a cool character design. I just never caught any of the like Indiegogo campaigns, and it's like I'm not in a rush. If the complete collection's still there in the future, I might pick it up off his eBay. But it's like I just wasn't on the train originally.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm getting it pretty late, and I don't have any others. Somehow I managed to skip every Cyberfrog, everything.
Yeah.
Until now, I have plenty of other stuff. I have, Jawbreakers and Vestry and a whole bunch of other books. Whatever. Hey, Wise Guys Entertainment, welcome.
Yeah. So, one of the things I was talking about before the show was that Ubisoft at the Game Developers Conference, which, I mean, we were talking about this before. You brought it up, how for some reason they split up the conference into like 2 different sections. No idea why, but they did.
Which conference?
The Game Developers Conference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so as part of the conference, they announced they were developing a new game technology.
Go out of focus.
A little bit, yeah. But you were talking before, right? It was there was the one where like I guess it was like the convention floor, and then there was like the panels, and they were separating everything apart or whatever.
Yeah, because it's like 2 conferences. There's a conference specifically for game developers, which is kind of like a Microsoft conference, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really. I mean, there's some fun aspects to it, but it's really a learning conference where you're sitting in on lectures essentially.
Yeah.
But then there's the consumer aspect, and that goes on. That's week 2.
But normally these things are basically conjoined back to back. They're not like this far apart. Yeah.
Oh, you're saying why did they? Oh, they completely.
Yeah.
They completely split them up because of COVID.
Yeah.
That's why they did that. Yeah. I think they canceled the whole consumer aspect in 2020, and they had the developer stuff online only. Yeah. And they might have done the same in last year, but yeah. So they're kind of in disarray right now. It's kind of messed up.
Yeah. So in the more conference side of things, Ubisoft announced a new game development technology called Scalar. Scalar. And what it's supposed to do apparently a lot of this is like industry buzzwords. It took me a while of reading into this to actually figure out what they were talking about, like what the actual technology was. Because they keep throwing around the word cloud, and they kept talking about like the power of flexibility, cloud computing, sitting on top of game engines, all this fucking buzzword shit. And by the time I was actually done reading about it, it seems like what they're trying to do is compartmentalize assets and aspects of game development, even like different sections of code, so that you don't end up with this like spaghetti code problem where you have like something you're updating over and over, and like old code is interacting with new code, and there are things that like you change one thing and it affects every fucking thing in your game. They're trying to compartmentalize it in a way that you can tweak independent parts of the game without fucking everything over, while using the cloud. So they want to, which I don't know why. So they want to use servers remotely to host aspects of the game. This would, I guess, would be good for an MMO, right? I couldn't see this being good for a console game or whatever, but they're saying this should also allow you to make bigger worlds in both scope, but also player count, because everything will be distributed so much, it'll have less server load per individual player. There was a lot of stuff about it. It was really hard to narrow down just exactly what this cloud accelerated system was going to do for development.
It doesn't sound all that new. Like, there's been tools to, separate out code, separate out concerns in that way for decades. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're saying, so you're gonna like cloud, like CI, continuous integration, using cloud servers or something?
Yeah, and so the main thing is each component of like a traditional game engine. So we're talking about like audio is its own component typically. Physics engine is typically its own component. AI for different assets like NPCs and objects are its own component. Things like that will all now be compartmentalized into its own structure, so you can change that independently of everything else. And the other big thing is that it has an on-demand philosophy for how the system's working, to where you can change things while the players are still playing, so you don't have to go through like a patch update, because normally you have to put a system down for maintenance before you can change anything. Even for a hot fix, it has to go down for at least 5 minutes. So these seems to be the big game changers according to them.
I mean, of those things, the updating without bringing the servers down for maintenance sounds like the biggest deal.
The
other stuff, compartmentalizing AI and stuff like, is like
apparently
that's
something
Unity and
Ubisoft really hasn't been doing up until now. So
at
least it seems new to them.
If you're looking at my face, I'm confused because I'm that's been in game development for a while.
They could be doing it in like a new way, and they're just not explaining it very well. Like this new way might be what allows them to change things without having to turn the servers off.
I guess if that's the way they're if they're breaking it out more somehow, so that you can update the game without bringing it down, that's kind of a big deal. It's kind of cool. You can do hot fixes like right on the fly faster.
But like I said, it's really hard to tell exactly what they want. I'm reading through this thing. I read through it 4 times already. Like last week or whatever, when this was new. It was like at the end of last week, beginning of this week, because we missed Wednesday. This week when it was like new, but also I read it a couple times before we started because I was trying to wrap my head around it again. And it's just like a whole bunch of buzzwords. Like, it's built on a microservice architecture. Ubisoft Scalar places each component of a system of traditional game engines independently in the cloud, moving from closed single processor systems to today's more distributed model platform across a potentially unlimited number of machines. That whole sentence was mostly buzzwords.
Yeah, I know. I'm like buzzard.
Yeah.
What the hell?
You understand, like, I'm struggling to explain this because they're struggling to explain this.
And so this is like, is this a competitor to like Unreal Engine and stuff?
No. So this is built to sit on top of existing engines.
Oh, okay.
But it's eventually going to be its engine of its own. So I guess Scalar is going to be a competitor to Unreal. I think a lot of people are trying to get away from Epic and have like their own engines that they can sell to people. Because even Ubisoft, like everybody's just been using Unreal for the last, 3 generations of games?
Yeah. Either Unreal or Unity, but more and more as Unreal Engine has gotten more and more user friendly, it's and more cross-platform friendly.
Yeah,
it's become better than Unity.
Yeah, well, because like I know the industry in general, like AAA, they've really been using Unreal, or they've started with 2, but when 3 hit, that was when it became like the industry standard that most people were using Unreal 3. And then 4 and now 5. But yeah, so making it more friendly for the indie scene too has made it more than just an industry standard. Everyone's using it across the board, especially with their licensing agreement that like if you make under a certain amount, you don't have to fucking pay for anything.
Yeah, that too, because it used to be fucking expensive.
And Unity was like the free alternative.
Right. Unity was always, I think, always free or, some license aspect, but free to use. And yeah, that was their big thing. Kind of makes me realize that I don't feel so bad about our engine, because I used to own a company with a game engine.
Yeah.
That basically died because we ran out of funds to keep maintaining it. But in retrospect, we never could have competed with stuff like this. So.
Oh yeah.
Oh well. No big loss. Probably better that it failed sooner rather than later.
Yeah, because I think in the modern day, with things like both Unity and Unreal existing, the only people that can compete are if you're making a very simplistic and niche type of engine, which is why you have like the visual novel engines like RenPy and stuff like that, or you have like Game Maker Studio, RPG Maker. Like these people have very user-friendly, simplistic engines that fit the niche that the person's looking for. Yeah.
We would have had to build out all kinds of tools. We didn't really have any tools. That was the problem, and we were basically competing against things like Game Maker Studio.
Yeah.
Who already had all these tools. So it was just like...
Yeah, if you don't have tools, you're basically only selling to other game devs, like people who already know what they're doing.
Yeah, where basically you had to use third-party tools to do things as simple as, creating sprite sheets and things like that. So, whereas, I think Game Maker has a sprite sheet tool. Yeah. And
or they also have an integrator where they just have a simple sprite camera. You can pull things in from what's that one? A-Sprite that is a very common one that people use for free. And it's like you could just pull things in from A-Sprite and it just move the camera to the sprite for each motion.
Yeah. But anyway, Dillard and Gamotron are talking about the tick, apparently.
I mean, hey, the tick is great, so I can't complain anytime somebody's talking about the tick.
Yeah. To answer John Dillard's question, Batman Well is a character from the tick.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But yeah, so it's like...
fascinating.
I don't know. Scalar, I mean, hopefully it's promising. There's been a lot of, steam worked up about it lately, which is why I had to bring it up. But all the steam, it's like... I know it's like this with, every E3 or every CES or whatever with these people. Yeah. It's just been buzzwords for generations now. I remember when, everything being more cinematic was the buzzword that everybody was throwing around.
Yeah.
Fucking,
Well, the nice thing about GDC is, one of the nice things, they keep these talks online for years, so you can always go back and watch And if what we just said or what you just said doesn't make any sense, go back and watch the presentation yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of these things that I'm saying, like the stuff I read out, verbatim quote from it. So it's like, hopefully you can make sense of what they intend from these buzzwords. It's like a language all of its own.
Yeah.
Like a different dialect of English. I fucking hate it. Because you talk to, like, people who work with computers have a different dialect, but everything they say makes sense once you learn it, because it's like, if somebody talks about a central processing unit, you're like, okay, that's the actual core of that's the CPU. It's what makes the computer work. It means the same thing every single time somebody says it. But like somebody says fucking, what are these? Transversal. Transversal can mean 100 different things when they're saying shit here.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know. Ubisoft. Yeah. Are you really?
And they're
really
French. They're fucking French too.
That's what I was going to say. Do you really want to use, software from a French company?
Yeah.
Your server's going to be in France. Give me a break.
I wouldn't be surprised, because some of these buzzwords, I think they started between translators of Japanese and European companies here at like E3s, where the buzzwords really started. I wouldn't be surprised if like they just hire these like really savvy businessmen who sell things to people, and they actually gave them a real list of words in French, and they're trying to translate. It's like, this would sound way better for selling to investors.
Yeah. Or maybe they translated it, from French to Japanese to English.
Oh, God.
Kind of like lost all meaning by the time it got to us. Who knows?
Oh. I mean, even thinking like the production technology VP of Ubisoft, his name's here. His name is Guillemette Picard. And I know that says Guillemette because you're not supposed to pronounce half of the letters that are there. It's Guillemette.
Guillemette.
Yeah, it's Guillemette. It's and you barely pronounce the T's too, even though there's two there. It's Guillemette. Yeah. Picard, and it's like fucking French ass names from a French ass company.
It's probably an ancestor of Jean-Luc.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh man, probably. It explains why he went all like fruity in the last this fucking new series.
Oh boy.
Okay.
GMT says they should hire me. I can smash two things together to get cool things. Cloud. Transversal. What was it?
That was transversal. But that's like the new buzzword that's been going on for 4 years now. It's just cloud this, cloud that. Oh man, cloud has been maybe 6 years now. I might be losing a couple years because of the pandemic.
Cloud. Everything's cloud. Cloud. What is the cloud? I still don't understand. So I keep hearing stuff about Web 3.0. I still don't quite understand what Web 2.0 was. But what is 3.0? I guess 2.0 is basically web-based applications.
Yeah, because that kind of came around when we switched to HTML5, where everything could be integrated directly into the web and vice versa.
Yeah.
And we also made a shift from people working directly in HTML to be in favor of Java and CSS on websites. That's kind of the change, right? Because before that, you could work in other scripts, but pretty much if you wanted to do anything on the web, you were interacting it with HTML 3 or 4, depending on where you were. You had to literally put an HTML code in for embedding and shit. Now we have direct embed. Everything is different than it was back in say the early aughts. So I get why they want to call it something different, but the framework for the internet is still 100% the same as it's always been. It's just the user interface and the development interface is different, but nothing else has changed.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at us here on Twitch, and I guess that's a Web 2.0 web-based application that you're using. GMT says Web 2.0 was what the hell? Was the new goo that comes out of Andrew Garfield's hands? I have no idea. What is she talking about?
I thought Garfield used the traditional web shooters. He wasn't like Maguire who shot the goo out.
That was Tobey Maguire. So what's 3.0? Is that NFTs? I don't know.
I think that's everybody's getting on this whole blockchain shit. I think that's what they mean by 3.0. Some people are saying that 3.0 is everything's going to become federated, like when we were talking about like the Fediverse and like Mastodon and all that shit. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, basically decentralized.
Yeah, decentralized web.
Yeah. Web 3.0 is the goo that comes out of Tom Holland's
also uses web shooters.
Oh, I get it. No, I see. So Tobey Maguire was Web 1.0. I got it. I got it. No, I understand.
No, I get it. It's just like, I think they'd be the exact same goo for at least the two that use web shooters.
Yeah.
But yeah, just this decentralized, federated internet is what people are thinking of. But the problem is, a lot of the stuff that people talk about Web 3.0 is even more centralized, even though that's like the type of words they're using. Because blockchain doesn't have to be decentralized, aside from the fact that a bit of it exists on everybody. There's accountability. In some ways, blockchain is even more centralized because everything can be tracked by a single unit, right? It depends on like which aspect of it you're talking about. And then when we're talking about like this metaverse shit, which people are throwing into 3.0, nothing could be more centralized than these like virtual like computing that everybody's trying to jump into. Like the cloud, right? We throw that buzzword out. Cloud computing, even if it's across multiple machines, it's usually like a server farm or whatever, and it's not even on your machine. Now it's something that's entirely centralized. And a lot of like, when it comes to NFTs and stuff, even though there's a blockchain that holds the receipt for the network, everything that you're interacting with is on some cloud server somewhere. So it's like, the receipts are decentralized. Your market is decentralized, but the actual interaction is in 100% centralized, maybe even more than it was before when you're just doing peer-to-peer file transfers.
Yeah, that's the problem that I've come to realize with like OpenSea. If you buy an NFT on OpenSea and OpenSea goes down, it's gone.
Yeah,
right?
Do you really have it? You still have your receipt for it because it's in your wallet, but do you actually have the thing?
Yeah. I guess maybe if you downloaded it or something. Yeah. Well, then we need to get to 3.0. I would have to use like,
maybe it's this weird meta centralization might be a better term for it. Something that's past centralization.
Yeah.
Beyond it. I don't know, but I don't know. I mean, to me though, it's still like, they're talking about all this shit, but I'm looking at the framework for how it works and how we're still using the same like internet service that we've been using forever, just with different applications on top of it. It's still the same web. There's nothing different than what we've been using since like the 90s. It's just a better version of it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Twitch, were we speaking of Twitch?
You did bring it up when we were talking about web-based applications.
Yeah, Twitch has released a new content policy that is very, very specific.
Yeah.
in somewhat creepy ways. So Twitch is I guess concerned about adult content, which I watch a lot of Asmongold. One thing he likes to point out is that despite all the people, bitching and moaning about ASMR and all the sexy content on Twitch, it actually only encompasses like 1%, 1 or 2% of the traffic on Twitch is to like, hot tub streams and ASMR and stuff like that.
Yeah, because even though there's a lot of popular titty streamers, the vast majority of them are still playing video games. And then the ones who aren't titty streamers, most people in general are playing video games.
Yeah, if you look like on a busy time of day, you can actually browse all of the different categories on Twitch.
Yeah.
And it's categories by game, and it'll tell you how many people are watching. And ASMR is like way down the list.
Yeah, like even
It's
at its
usually
peak,
like-
at maybe it gets to like 25, but usually it's down in like the 50s of popularity.
Yeah. So a lot of people are, I think overreact.
They do it like a time thing, right? So ASMR is most popular in the middle of like the night hours for the person streaming, right? Because people want something quiet to listen to, relax them to sleep. Maybe somebody's reading a book. Maybe they're just making weird noises into their microphone. And hot tub streams tend to be most popular during the evening hours, like just after dinner. Right?
Okay.
Well, because that's just, like people chill at the hot tub at night. Even a lot of these people who do that stuff, they'll play video games during the day.
Yeah. But, but let's not kid ourselves. The ASMR streams on Twitch are blowjob simulators.
There are a lot of them. Yes. No, I'm not kidding
Yeah.
in that regard. There are some people who do just read books. I've watched some where people are whispering a book. That's a minority of the ASMR streams.
Yeah. Most of them, they're licking a microphone.
Yeah, or blowing softly into it or stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess Twitch is, Gypsy says my hot tub time is private time. So Twitch listed out all of the things that they're basically banning as far as like sexual pornographic content. And some of them are quite specific and quite hilarious. So I thought I'd read some of it. So this is from Zach Bussey on YouTube. Busey? Zach Busey? I don't know where he got this list. But basically, pornographic and explicit sexual content that is going to be banned. Playing a pornographic audio on stream. Posting a link to pornography in chat. Simulating oral sex using a food item. Role-playing oral sex in virtual reality. Spreading or stimulating genitalia. Okay. I would think showing genitalia. They don't even mention that.
Well, I think they're not mentioning anything that was previously already against the rules.
Yeah. Extended mimicking of masturbation. Fondling your own genitals over your clothing. Now, here's where it gets funny. Posting detailed ASCII art of an erect penis in chat. So I guess if somebody does that, I guess you're supposed to have mods, and if somebody does that, you're supposed to ban them. It's like, that's a popular
This shows us, so you can't eat a banana on stream. No, you can. You just can't do it intentionally sexually.
Yeah. That's funny.
Right? Like, if you were to just, take a bite off of a banana, that's one thing. If you were to, deep throat a banana, that would be another.
Yeah, apparently that's going to be banned. These are not in place yet. Yeah. Posting a fictionalized image of a character that obviously has an erection. Let's see. Clearly deliberate positioning of a sex doll in the background of a webcam. So you can't even have a web.
Yeah.
Darn it. Can't have my sex doll in the background. Actively displaying masturbatory aids. So basically just displaying.
Oh my God. This directly attacks frickin' Charlie, Moist Critical. He can't have his fucking Moby Huge in the background. He was competing with, I think it was Belle Delphine for the largest dildo collection. Just
oh my God,
some weird internet thing, right? So now he can't show his dildo collection off on stream.
It says actively displaying masturbatory aids on stream is disallowed. Let's see, asking chat to describe sex acts that can be acted out on stream. I guess people are doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Participating in phone sex with an undisclosed individual. Role-playing sex acts with a stream audience.
Oh, but what if it was phone sex with a disclosed individual?
Apparently that's okay, I guess. displaying a used condom on stream. This is under the heading of displaying of sexual bodily fluids.
Yeah.
Drawing an image of a person covered in sexual fluids. And here we go. Displaying an artistic depiction of an individual licking fluid off another person's foot. It's going to be banned. Damn it, like, Twitch.
I get it though. Twitch, even though there's some pretty raunchy stuff on here gameplay wise as well. Twitch is trying to be a kind of like family friendly site to a degree, right? Where like children, teenagers can come here and watch stuff. That's why they have that like, oh, you have to be signed in to watch certain streams because it's marked 18 or older, and then you have to click the OK anyway. But I think it's the problem is they've kind of let this go on for a little too long, because they've always had restrictions on this shit, but they've been very vague about it, and they've made a lot of money off of some of this raunchy shit, and now they're starting to cut down on some of it.
What's funny is obviously they were like watching and taking notes.
Yeah.
Like
this is a specific thing that's happened. It's almost like a camp counselor or something, and they gave you the ground rules at the start, thinking that you would be genuine with them and just interpret what they mean in the broad scheme of things. But then they notice like the boys are constantly walking into the girls' dorms and shit like that, and they're sitting there taking notes and like, apparently these kids can't fucking listen, so I'm gonna have to tell them specifically to their face what they're getting demerits on if they do any of this fucking bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. Shoot, there was something I was gonna say.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah. Oh, I know what it was. It was about there's like a policy against promoting your OnlyFans, right? You can't specifically say, direct people to your OnlyFans on Twitch. But there was some speculation that there may be a workaround where you can say that if you're what's the word? Sponsored by OnlyFans, you can say, they're my sponsor, or something like that. I don't know. There was some.
I've noticed that too early on, that there are competitors to OnlyFans now. Like there's Fansly and stuff like that. And when people were trying to get people over there, they're like, hey, switch from OnlyFans to us. We'll give you a good deal. And because of that, they were technically sponsored by that, and they were throwing that out there, and nobody was getting flagged because it counted like an actual paid sponsorship.
Right. I think that's why there was some chatter about that, because I think because of Fansly kind of got around it by basically telling them, just say that you're sponsored by us. Yeah. And that will direct people, and they'll figure out where you are or something like that.
And technically it was a paid sponsorship because they were getting cut a deal for switching over from one platform to the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they weren't like specifically saying, go to my Fansly.
Yeah. There's other workarounds too, because you're like, hey, if you want to see where else I post content, you can find everything on my link tree below. And then you're not even linking directly to anything that's all on a different site.
But that might be, it seems like that's prohibited by Twitch technically too, right?
I thought Twitch allowed you to put like link trees and stuff.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
As long as you're vague about it. You just got to be vague. That's the real thing. Like, you can't mention what's in the link tree. You're just like, you can find all of my other places.
Yeah. Have you heard about this whole, well, we probably don't need to go down that rabbit hole. There's a whole big deal going down in the VTuber community, where this VTuber bunny GIF was harassing other VTubers.
Oh, I know Bunny GIF. That's the formerly cosplayer Bunny Ayumi, who's harassed a lot of people. That was we've actually talked about that person before. who was it? It was like a game dev or whatever. It was she was calling him a creep, the one with the DMs. Remember? It was that guy who was like saying he liked her cosplay in the DMs. Oh god, what freaking game was it? It was it's like a fighting game because she plays a lot of fighting games on stream. We talked about this like last year, I think.
Guilty Gear?
It might have been Guilty Gear. It was one of those, or no, it was I think it was Skullgirls. It was the Skullgirls game dev, right? And that was the same person who was involved in that whole little controversy. Oh. Yeah.
Well, apparently some VTuber had enough of her bullshit and posted this whole big thing, this whole big twit-longer diatribe with evidence, by the way, screenshots of DMs and contracts and all this kind of stuff. Like she was making a miniature of Bunny Ayumi or Bunny Gif or whatever, and had this whole contract and everything, and it basically fell apart because of just stupid high school level infighting and basically Bunny
typical stuff.
Fucked her over and all this stuff, and she was like, "Here's all the evidence." Oh,
hey, thanks for the tip, Sketchbook. $20. That actually ends up covering all of our fees for the month. As an extra thank you for that. Yeah.
Thanks, we really appreciate it. So yeah, we don't need to go through it, but if you want to know more information, look up Hero Hey on YouTube. Yeah. He has a couple of different videos on it, and it looks like a just shit show, and it's just like fucking VTubers, man.
I know.
VTubers and their drama, but it just occurred to me because it's a thing that happened this week.
Yeah, I would say VTubers in a drama. It's not even VTubers in a drama. It's the same person, right? Because the problem with VTubers is a lot of them are people who were even previously what you might call like an e-thought or a titty streamer or something like that, who they were starting to lose views. I remember covering that VTubers were beating the snot out of e-thoughts when it came to views and stuff. So a lot of them started becoming VTubers as well to cash in on everything. Yeah. This is a single person who was already popular from being a cosplayer like a decade ago, who then went into doing like streaming of games and becoming somewhat of an e-thought, who then went into becoming a VTuber. And drama follows this person almost everywhere they go. So you can kind of see the single like overlap here. It's the same person causing the drama. if you see the same thing happening to the same person everywhere they go, you can kind of see the point of conflict.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. One funny thing about it. So right after this person, and I can't remember her name, something Laser, Laura Laser, something like that. After she dropped this whole big screed about Bunny Gif, like the next day, Bunny Gif came out with a response, right, and saying, "This is out of context. This was fair, and I apologize, but this was out of context," and blah blah blah, responding to this whole thing. And at first, I was like, "Wow, she really responded fast." Then people looked at the document because she responded like in a Google Doc.
Yeah.
They looked at the document and you could see who had edited this document, and it had been put together by a PR team. Like they could see the forensics of this reply document or this response document, and it was like, this has been edited by like 8 different people, and they could see, and they were like, this is a PR thing. Like she didn't even touch this thing. Like it was hilarious. And
see, that's the problem. There are ways of hiding that. Like very easy ways to hide that. All you do is after you're done with the document, you just freaking copy everything out of the document, scrub it, and just start a new document and put everything in there fresh. Like you just don't have to leave a fucking trail on anything on the internet, but everybody does because they don't understand what a trail is digitally. Yeah.
It was hilarious because people are like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And then like a day or two later, she came out with another response saying, "This is me. It's only me, and I apologize," and blah blah blah. So, fucking VTubers.
Yeah, and some of these people, they've made an entire living off of drama.
Yeah, yeah. And she's probably a multimillionaire, so of course she has a PR team,
right? Like, especially with the industries, like going from cosplay to streaming and stuff like that. Like, they start off with no money, but if you get big enough, it's not that hard to invest your money properly.
Yeah.
Though there's probably a lot of them that are very successful from the clout end. Like they've been running a successful business socially, but have like no money because they're just bad at handling it.
Yeah. Is there a way you can see if Sketchbook wrote anything, like a super chat kind of thing? In Streamlabs?
I've been looking at all of the donations each time, but most of the time, it's just something like he said, "Keep it up, guys." Right?
Thanks.
Last time Diller said, "Booyah." I just haven't been saying it. If it something simple that derails from the conversation, I really should just be bringing it up anyway. They would have seen it on screen though, because I should, unless the alert's broken, I'm not always looking at it. It should be popping up on screen. Yeah.
Yeah, it just occurred to me. I wondered if Sketchbook had anything specific to say.
Yeah, no, I have it up in front of me. I've got the whole event list going back like 10 months.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's very generous.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. We love our viewers.
We do.
Mm-hmm.
And we hope our viewers love us. That would be great.
Yeah.
Or hate us. I'm fine with hate watching.
It's not absolutely necessary that you love us.
Actually, sometimes I think I would like some hate watchers, because sometimes hate watchers will throw you money just to say shit at you.
Yeah. No, I know. Dillard, trolls us for free. That's the problem,
Yeah. Sometimes he trolls it for money. One of them I should have said back 2 months ago. He said, "Here's your filthy money."
Nice. Sketchbook says, "Marsupial, the slayer of dragonkin." I don't know if I've slayed dragonkin, but I slayed a dragon the other day.
Well, unless it's like the first dragon, aren't all dragonkin?
Oh, are they? I guess. I think of dragonkin as humanoid, but dragon related. I recently ran across, and I don't know if I can find it right now, but I ran across an explanation of all the different types of dragons, right? There's all these, there's drakes, there's wyverns, there's worms, there's, all these different types of dragons. And there's actually, I didn't even realize there was like a set definition, and maybe there isn't, but according to this meme I saw, I think it was, like a drake is like a dragon without wings, a four-legged dragon without wings. A wyvern.
Let you know, all of that's bullshit.
Okay.
Right.
Well, this is what I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like in this image, a wyvern was basically a two-legged dragon with wings, and a worm is like a no-legged dragon, stuff like that. Anyway, the person was pointing out that the dragons in Dragon Quest are actually drakes because they don't have wings.
So the reason I'm going to say it's bullshit, because I've been over this plenty of times, especially somebody who like studies mythology as a hobby since I was like a small kid. When you study the ancient world and their myths, you also have to study the language around them. And there are a couple cultures that have multiple types of dragons in which they have multiple names. But in general, most cultures have one thing they identify as a dragon. It's just how they interpret it. And that is just their culture's word for what we call a dragon.
Yeah.
Right? Like in Chinese, it's called a long, but it would literally translate to dragon if you were to translate the word.
Right.
So they're all dragons. If you want to separate them, sure, it's fun to do that. We could be more specific with our language and everything, but they're all dragons. It's just that it's like sword, right? Like gladius. Gladius literally just means sword in Roman. That's all it means. That's what a sword was. Not most cultures aren't like the Japanese where they have like 50 different types of swords and stuff and a name for each one. Some cultures might have like 2 or 3. And some of them it's literally just it's sword and this is longer sword and this is shorter sword, like yeah.
Yeah, Sketchbook says, wait, some drakes have wings. Yeah, I mean, in some mythologies or some video games, for instance, a drake is just a baby dragon. So it's just a smaller dragon, but it still has wings. Because I think the drakes in the Ultima series, for instance, do have wings. They're just smaller and a different color. But anyway,
because Drake literally just means dragon. Image. That's all. Like it comes from the same root word. It's just another European word for dragon. That's all it is.
Yeah, I'll have to find. I wonder who made this original image that showed like 6 different types of dragons and stuff like that. It was basically based on how many legs they had and whether they had wings or not.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's like I remember playing League of Legends years ago, and there is a dragon. There's a dragon pit. You go, that's a big mob. Everybody fights over the dragon because it gives you a lot of gold. And you would constantly get in arguments with people when you called it a dragon. The game calls it a dragon too. And they're like, it's a drake. Right?
Yeah.
And it was like, a drake is a dragon. They're like, no, it's not. It's a different thing. I'm like, you're fucking stupid.
Yeah, I've always thought of a drake as a type of dragon. Like maybe a smallish dragon or a baby dragon. But still a dragon. It's just a different, a sub type. Speaking of things, imaginary things that people argue about, there's also a great new video on Shadiversary. Sorry.
Oh, it's Shadiversity.
Just Shadiversity.
Yeah, I love Shad. He's great. What's the video?
Yeah. A new video on the Actually, I think there's 2 videos at least on the weapons of Elden Ring. And one of them goes over the animations of all the different types of weapons. And I watched the whole thing. It's fascinating. He's an awesome expert on wielding weapons, and he went through all the different types, and he showed all the animations, and he critiqued each one of them. A lot of them, he said, were a bit too exaggerated in the motions, but he said, it's a video game. In some cases you want to be able to project what you're doing, or have a bit more of an exaggerated movement.
Yeah, it's like with animation, you really want to exaggerate motion. Yeah.
But he's saying, but in real life, you really wouldn't wind up this much, and you really wouldn't overswing quite as much as this character does. But one of the interesting things in the video was that the traditionally Japanese weapons, they got very, very right. They got the motions perfect, and I was just fascinated.
Well, it makes sense because they're Japanese, so they've probably studied it quite a lot in their lives.
Yeah. And then he pointed that out. He's like, "Well, it's a Japanese company." He's like, "But I think there's like a big long katana that you can get," and he was like, "The motions on the katana are perfect." He's like, they got that exactly right. He's like, some of the Western weapons, the great swords and stuff like that, he's like, it's not quite the way you would typically wield that. But he was just fascinating.
Well, so that's another thing to consider too, is that with the Western weapons, a lot of Japanese moves for their katana stuff are heavily exaggerated motions. They're very form heavy because they practice their forms over and over. But I mean, you have that in certain historical European martial arts and stuff. That's probably their interpretation of what they think they're seeing when they look up martial arts in Europe, HEMA and stuff like that, because they see the sword and they probably think in many ways they're going to be swinging it similarly to how you would swing a katana, even though it's a much heavier weapon that you would have to keep very tight to your chest. so you don't lose control of it. Because if you lose control over a heavy weapon, somebody else with a heavy weapon can literally just knock it out of your hands. You want to keep as much, like a lover's grip is typically what I refer to when it comes to most swords grip. You want to be tight enough that she doesn't slip out of your hand, but firm enough that the reverb doesn't knock it out either.
Yeah. Yeah, and exactly. The sketchbook says, it's because it's a Japanese game company, so you'd expect they would know exactly how to wield a Japanese weapon. Yeah. But some of the stuff, like there's a Zweihander in the game. Yeah. There's a very long sword, but it's thin. It's a very long and thin sword. It's not as heavy.
Should not. I mean, I guess it depends what you mean by a thin, because the Zweihander, it means literally two-hander, right, in German. Yeah. And it is a great sword. It's longer than, say, your typical long sword. Typically, they have a second wrapping just above the handguard so that you can even grab there, and sometimes they'll even have like small spike arc as like a secondary handguard separating it too. Sometimes it's as tall as a person. Yeah.
It is. Like it's a huge greatsword. Yeah, and but it's pretty thin though. I mean, anyway, his point was the way the character wields it. It looked a lot heavier than it should.
Probably,
he was saying Zweihander shouldn't be as heavy as it appears to be
because they taper. That's the real thing, right? Yeah. So at the base, like it is thick enough that you have to grab it like this, or like wide enough, I should say. But then they taper out, and as it gets to the end, it might only be like that. I would say your typical Zweihander probably weighs, I don't know, somewhere between 3 to 5 kilos. It's not that heavy. Like anybody could pick it up.
Yeah, and then of course there are heavier weapons. I mean, there's like a sword that looks like a Buster sword in there that you probably couldn't even realistically pick up in real life. But he was like, some of the weapons that are bigger, they're not quite wielding. It's acting like it's heavier than it should be, but stuff like that. So he really goes in depth. So I would check it out.
Yeah, some of it might be again like them not having experience with the weapon. So again, exaggerating it, they're looking at the larger weapon. Now, an odachi, which is like the longest blade that they have in Japan, it's thin like a katana, but it's a really big katana. So it basically just scales like you would if you made a katana that long. And odachi are actually on average probably heavier than a Zweihander is. And they are very big sweeping motions. They're siege weapons that you would have on the battlefield. You would clear out people so that people with the rams could come in and actually destroy walls. So they're field/sieging weapons. And those are really heavy to swing in proportion to like swinging a katana or something. So they're probably thinking, swinging a Zweihander is proportionately heavier than swinging a longsword. But also, they have completely different techniques than swinging a longsword, which compensate for what little more weight that they have on top of it.
Yeah. So, and they probably just like categorized it as a great sword, and then they just have this one animation or set of animations for the great sword category. So it just kind of looks the same.
Yeah.
But it also goes into daggers, and he was pointing out how you would typically do more stabbing motions with the dagger. Yes. And one interesting thing is he pointed out that like for a lot of the swords, when you're holding a shield with it, you typically would keep the shield up, but still, swing your sword. But in the game, you kind of put the shield away.
Which is not a good idea.
Right. But, it's the game mechanic.
Shield and dagger would be fine, right? Because you hold the shield to your face and you stab at people.
Apparently, in Elden Ring, you keep the shield up, and you can do that. Which is
that's how you would want to fight if all you had was like a short sword or a knife, and you had a shield. You're like, well, I'm not at a complete disadvantage because I can protect myself and still stab at people. The only problem is maybe they could cut my arm when I go close because how much closer I have to be to stab somebody.
Right. So it's interesting that in the game, you can keep the shield up and stab at the same time with the smaller daggers and stuff like that, or the smaller swords. But he even went into the bows the short bows and the long bows that you can get.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating video.
I actually got into an argument with somebody recently, and basically the argument had to stop. Like I just stopped it because there wasn't any point arguing with the person, because I had actual experience sparring with some of these weapons, but because they did not believe that I had experience sparring with these weapons, like, I'm not going any further with this. Like, I don't need you to believe me, but like, they were asking, like, if you were on the battlefield, what weapons would you prefer? And I was like, well, statistically, I would prefer a spear and shield. Like, if I had a spear and shield, I would have the highest chances of surviving a battle if we were just stuck to melee weapons. And they're like, yeah, but a spear and shield is hard to use. I'm like, no, it's literally the easiest weapon combination to use. That's why they outfitted militaries with it for like all of history. You literally hold the shield up to protect you. You don't ever lower it down, and you have a long pokey stick that you can stab people with. Spear is the easiest weapon. Anyone can learn to use a spear.
Funny, in this video, the Shadowversity video, he pointed out that the spear and shield was ridiculously OP. He was like, this may be, because he got a door shield and a really long spear, and he was like, this may be this is like a game breaking combination.
And it's probably one of the only games that actually respects what spear and shield combo is, right? The reason people don't walk around like from place to place. Now, this is where it becomes unrealistic, because your character has to hold this spear and shield the entire time, right? And it's bad for travel. A sword was like a merchant's equipment or whatever. It was a sidearm, but if you're somebody who's traveling, who's carrying shit, going from place to place, a sword is great because you can draw it fast. With a spear and a shield, you basically have to have it on all the fucking time. You can't put your spear down. You can't like put it in a sack or something like that. You'd get tired walking around with this shield on your arm and the spear in your hand, as opposed to being able to sheath a sword. But statistically, functionally, it is a better weapon combo than even a sword and a shield.
But you typically only have it if you're in an army anyway.
Right. So you have like a cart that's
on the wagon.
Yeah, they give a cart that's carrying everybody's weapons. When you get to the battlefield, everybody takes it out of the cart and they get ready for formation.
Yeah. For some reason, I've watched a couple of different Shad videos lately, and another one I watched was about. It was replying to a video that was claiming that medieval armor was worse than
I've seen that one.
Nothing.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah, it was so ridiculous.
One of the claims was like, carrying all this armor would make you tired by the time you got to the battlefield. And he was like, they wouldn't carry the stuff to the battlefield, dumbass.
Or also thinking about the number of people who were actually in plated armor, which he did bring up. Most people wouldn't have been in plated armor anyway. They might have like a gambeson. Maybe they'd have some type of riveted armor like what he was wearing in the video.
Yeah.
But like the people who would be in heavier plate, which again isn't that heavy, because the guy who made the initial video was comparing tournament armor like for jousting and stuff, not what people actually would have worn on the battlefield. They would be riding a horse because they were wealthier people, and the horse would be carrying that weight. They wouldn't be tired by the time they got to the fucking battlefield.
And he said the people who would be wearing heavy armor on the battlefield wouldn't be wearing it marching to the battlefield.
Here's another thing. People have this weird idea that every single person marched to battle at all times, like they walked on foot. No, often aside from equipment carts, they also had like oxen and stuff with carts for people to ride, and they would take turns marching so that like the weight wasn't too much. So you couldn't carry everyone there. But it'd be like, okay, now I'm on, because you needed some people already on foot that had like swords ready to draw in case you were attacked on the way to the battlefield, because it would take other people time to get off the cart and draw their weapons. So you would just basically, you would be taking turns on guard. You'd be on march at that moment. Some people would be riding. You'd swap out. Kind of like the same in modern militaries, where if you have jeeps and tanks and stuff and you have soldiers marching next to the tanks, not everybody marches to the fucking battlefield.
I think people get their medieval history from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
When the orc army marches from Isengard to Helm's Deep or something.
Yeah.
And it shows them marching the whole way in full armor. all that stuff. It's like, that's not how it was.
Yeah, I know. Fucking ridiculous. Like, they had vehicles back then. They were drawn by animals, but they had vehicles back then. It carried a lot of their shit. It was like, I'm such a snob about this. Like, I was even telling you guys, I think when we did that one D&D session, that it would only make sense that your group had a cart, right? That you can store stuff on, because, like, of course you'd have a cart. Even if it was something you guys had to take turns pulling from place to place, maybe you didn't have an animal. Almost everybody had, like, at least a wheelbarrow, right? Vehicles have existed forever. They just weren't automated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Fitzgerald's right. Orcs had super strength, but humans don't. So, you know, when you look at actual medieval history, that's not how it worked.
A lot of people just had wheelbarrows. And guess what? You could leave your weapons in just a wheelbarrow and just drop it and grab your fucking weapon. If you were a single person, merchants had them. If you couldn't afford an animal and you were going from, like, one town to the next, it was like a 5-mile hike or whatever, you would just take a freaking 2-wheeled cart that you hold and just walk it. Maybe you'd keep a sidearm on you. You know, like... People have a very bad model of history in their head.
Yeah. Yeah, the bottom line is having medieval armor was better than not. Otherwise, they wouldn't wear it. I mean, they weren't stupid.
Yeah.
If not having armor was better, then they would have not worn armor.
Yeah, like, even highwaymen wore some type of armor. Like, if you were going to rob somebody, you knew most people had at least a knife on them. Like, nobody would be walking between cities without at least a knife. So they wore, like, thick leather vests to try to make sure that you couldn't cut them as easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Soldiers, because they owned it. You know, like, the Romans, like he said, were forced to carry their shit. You couldn't even sign up for the Legion unless you were rich enough to afford your own armor. They only wanted, like, a strong army. They didn't want a peasant army. So you literally owned everything you brought to the Legion when you were in the Roman military.
Yeah. But anyway, check out the Shadiversity videos on Elden Ring. They're very informative. Very fun.
It was actually that's kind of the class system. That's the breakdown between the class system, right? In Rome is the first step is there's the plebeians who are citizens, but they would not be. Well, I mean, a lot of them they come from plebes. That's where the name comes from. But they could not afford their own armor. They were the lower ranking city. And when you get into class 1, that meant you were at the minimum financial security that you could afford your own armor and join the Legion, which gave you, like, a lot of voting power in the Senate. When you voted in your senators, they had more voting power than the bulk of society combined. And then there was 5 classes in general before you get to the equestrians. Fucking yeah. The Shad's a good channel. I recommend people who don't watch Shadiversity but they're interested in history should do that. There's a lot of other good history channels too that talk about stuff like that. There's an Italian guy I really like who called Lemetatron. There's a channel called Modern History that's pretty good too. A lot of these people even do a lot of like crossovers with each other. A lot of good history channels.
Yeah. And of course, there's the classic Shad rant about the nunchucks.
Oh yeah.
Not as good as a stick. You had stick very good.
Stick is good. Pokey stick is the best weapon. I just want to drill that into people's heads. Yeah. Pokey stick is the best weapon. Right? It gives you reach. You are away from the person trying to kill you, which is why they also would like pokey stick. That's also why swords got longer, because they were like thrusting weapons. You could defend close, but they were still thrusting weapons. Try to pierce armor and stuff. Reach pokey stick. Yeah. You can freaking hold shield with pokey stick, which you lose strength in the thrust, but it gives you more defense. If somebody's running from you, you can throw pokey stick. It is a great weapon. You can even use it like a staff. You can use it to walk. Pokey stick is now walking stick. You can block with pokey stick because wood is strong. Pokey stick, good. Invest in spear.
That's right. Yes, by pokey stick you mean a spear.
Yes, that's what I mean. Well, I'm trying to, like, caveman brain. Pokey stick. It's one of the oldest weapons. You take long stick, you carve the end into a point before we actually started putting stones on it and then metal blades and stuff like that. Some of the best weapons in history are just modifications and variations of pokey stick.
Mm. That's right. And what's a sword if not a metal sharpened stick?
Yes, it is just pokey stick where instead of having long handle, it's short handle and the pokey part goes all the way down.
That's right. And it's metal. And, a mace is just a stick with a ball in the end.
Yeah. And still, none of them are as good as old school pokey stick.
That's right.
Because you know what happens?
Nunchucks.
Like, you go to stab somebody with a spear, and they swipe it away with the sword. Well, guess what? The spear direction is a thrust, so during the swipe, you can just pull it back and thrust again. Like, it is a really good weapon. Swords, you have to do fancy movements and stuff like that. It's actually why, like, if somebody thrusts at you with a sword even, because they can basically do the same thing, especially longsword, you usually have some type of mitt so you can hold the blade, like a gauntlet or something. Or right-hander, you have, like, the extra grip, so they're using it like a spear. You have to back up after parrying it because they can literally just pull back and thrust again.
See, Sketchbook is trying to justify nunchucks, but man, if you want something for concealed, just get a dagger. Much better than a nunchuck.
No, nunchucks were a weapon of convenience, right? There's a lot of weapons that it probably wasn't a farming tool like people think it was. That's kind of been debunked, but it could have been used on livestock at one point in time. The version that you see is clearly designed as a weapon, but it's a weapon made out of things that they had, and that's why you have the complaint of, well, you had pokey stick, right? You had stick is better. But it's a weapon of convenient because in Okinawa, they were constantly being attacked, and farmers had to come up with things that they could use as weapons. And they had a lot of equipment on their farm, but, like, a pitchfork is not as good as actually turning something into a spear and stuff like that. So they took a lot of what they had, and they started refashioning them into weapons. So they already have, like, these block sticks, and they have chains, so they just started fastening them together. Some of the oldest forms of nunchucks weren't even two sticks, right? They go back, and it's literally a stick with like a flail. It's got like a ball on the other end, and then they start fastening two sticks. You also have the kasarigama and stuff like that. Like, you have the sickle with a weight on the end. And a lot of these were literally just made out of convenience. They're not necessarily good weapons, but they've been used traditionally because they've been around for so long. Yeah. But the bow staff, even though it has no pokey part at the end, would probably beat most of these weapons in a fight if somebody was trained. You've already got reach. Yeah. Wood is strong. It's actually hard to break if you temper wood. It can even take like shots from blades. Like a metal blade is not going to break through wood. That's why axes are fashioned to cut down trees. Wood is tough. And you can break bones with wood. Like a staff is not a bad weapon.
Yeah. Well, apparently his main argument about that was that a nunchucks required about 10 times more training to use without end up hurting yourself. Compared to a stick. No, stick is the easiest weapon to use. Yeah.
I could teach any idiot to fight with, like, a staff or a spear in an afternoon to the point that they could run at another like team of people. Like, that's it. Yeah. Would they still lose against a trained person? Sure. But if we're fighting an army where numbers matter, they'd be way better off with that stick.
Yeah. But anyway, we don't need to get into that. Again, you can watch the Shad video if you want to know more. And of course, it's all just opinion.
Yeah. No, I like nunchucks, but the nunchaku
they're cool.
is not a very
They look
good weapon, right? Like you could do impressive things. You could fight somebody else with a weapon if you're trained, but they're these days more for show because almost any weapon's better than it.
Yeah,
I'd rather have a bullwhip. A bullwhip is a better weapon. Like, because if you know how to use a bullwhip, you can stand at like a huge distance from somebody, upwards of like 10 feet back, depending on how long your whip is, maybe even 12. I've seen some pretty long bullwhips, and you could take fingers and shit off from a distance because the crack of a bullwhip is because the whip is literally breaking the sound barrier at the end of the crack. So it's like it's like a little bullet.
I've seen where Indiana Jones, got his chin, cracked by a whip or whatever.
Now, spear is still better than bullwhip, don't get me wrong, but like if I was picking like novelty weapons, like a bullwhip is a good novelty weapon. You could kill somebody from a really good distance if you hit them in the right spot, or at least injure them to the point that they don't want to come close to you anymore. It's going to do nothing against armor though. Like that whip ain't touching metal. Like that's the bad part of that. But like what's a nunchuck's going to do to an armored foe? Yeah, current day, you just need to learn to shoot. That's the better one. We've perfected the spear so much that we decided that we were going to take the entire stick function off of the spear and then just shoot the spearhead out of another, out of a cannon that you can hold in your hand.
That's right.
We're still using spears. We're just using really, really good explosive spears.
You know what drives me? I always thought I don't know if there's a name for it, but the scene in Game of Thrones where the Red Viper or whatever his name is fighting against the mountain, and he chooses a spear as his weapon. And I thought that was weird at first, but then realized he could hit the guy, he could get the guy from a distance.
Without ever getting close.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why that scene drives me nuts, because after he basically knocks him out at first, he gets close to him. And
he's an idiot. Like, even if you want to ensure the kill, just like stab him from the longest distance possible. Like,
stab him a few more times. But it was a very smart weapon to start with, because then he could beat him without getting close enough. So that,
Yeah, and the only other advantage there is that, like, they had to make sure the ring was big enough because the mountain's big. If you were doing that against somebody else, this is why spears suck in close quarters combat for the most part.
But the mountain is also slow.
Yeah, and he's slow.
So
this was against, like, if you were in tournament against a sword user, because tournament was in a very tight ring. It's actually about the size that a modern boxing ring is formed on. A spear would be horrible in that environment because you're just going to get outmaneuvered.
He could close the distance too quickly. Yeah.
But if you have like an unlimited distance to keep backing up, the spear is just like at an infinite advantage, because you can just keep backing up and continuing to stab the person.
Yeah.
And they have to keep trying to close the distance on you. We saw the bow and said we can make that better. That's all it is. All of our best weapons have been an advancement of the spear from the beginning, right? I actually tried explaining this back in the day to, like, I think Kat. It was in like one of Flit's streams, and she just was not hearing it when I said that a gun is just a better spear. And like I even worked through, it's like, they invented the atlatl, which could launch the spear at a greater distance. Then we're like, hey, instead of throwing our own muscle into it, why don't we, the bow and arrow is just a better spear. And then we created a crossbow, which is like a freaking analog gun is the best way to put it, which is just a bow on a gun, and it made the spear smaller and more precise. And then we're like, let's just get rid of the stick altogether because we have gunpowder.
Yeah, and I think it was a never-ending quest to lengthen the distance at which you can hit someone and decrease the amount of training, so that people can more easily use it.
Well, in general, decrease the amount of effort. Right? Because it's not even just training, it's the body power. Because like guns, we finally made it to the point that the only strength you need is the strength to hold the gun steady at your target.
Right.
And
I guess a crossbow is specifically, the real advantage of the crossbow is you don't have to learn to shoot a fucking bow.
Yeah.
If you can load it, boom, it's done. You just pull the trigger as long as you can aim. But yeah, I think the problem was bows took a lot of training.
Yes, they did. That was even back in the day when guns sucked, right? Let's say like during the Revolutionary War, where you're actually far more likely to miss your target than hit it because of just the way guns were loaded. Ben Franklin was the one who came up and said that he would have trained the army to use bows and arrows because at the time they were more precise, but it would be quicker to just give them guns. Because you have to train a soldier for years to use a bow and arrow. With a gun, you can train him in like a week or so.
Right. Here's an interesting. So, like I said, I've been watching a lot of Shad videos for some reason this week, and one of the things he pointed out was that the longbow does not give you any distance or weight advantage over a short bow.
The advantage is that it's easier to use. Like you could put it in somebody's hand. They don't have to aim it or anything. You could set it on the ground as a leveling material thing. And it's easier to train someone to use a long bow. But somebody with a short bow might actually even be able to hit harder and faster if they're trained and has a high draw weight and stuff like that.
Yeah, and a short bow can have just as high a draw weight as a long bow. And one of the things he pointed out was that the reason the English longbow was the dreaded, new weapon was not the bow itself. It was that they launched a propaganda campaign to make archery a big deal.
Yeah, it was
England.
The archers. Everybody could shoot a bow in England.
Yeah, everybody started learning archery when they were, kids, practically, and it was the thing to do.
It was actually in that same armor video because he was talking about like how bow and arrows were good against armor and stuff, and it's like, well, not really. Like a war bow, which could be long or short, is just a bow with a high draw weight to be used in war. Could pierce armor from a certain distance, and it's going to lose power the longer the arrow flies because it's going through the wind. There's atmosphere that is traveling through, and gravity's taking it down. Wind resistance, that's the word I'm looking for. Due to wind resistance, it's going to be losing power. But if somebody's close, especially on horseback, and they shoot you, sure. Recurve bow. That actually is the best for medieval warfare. But yeah, if somebody's on a horseback and they're close enough and they shoot you, it's going to go through your armor. But from like a really long distance away, and you have full plate, and they're shooting like a volley, especially because you probably also have like a shield over your head if a volley's coming in. Visor down, you might be protected against most arrows coming in. Like it's going to lose a lot of velocity by the time it gets you. The hail of arrows is not as impressive as people think. Everybody knows how to beat it. It's a good strategy because it stops you from doing anything during the time that the hail of arrows is coming through.
But I think it worked a lot better before armor.
Yeah, but it depends what you mean by armor, because like a shield's been around forever, right? And especially wooden shields, and that's a form of armor. And that was the first mitigation to the hail of arrows, is everybody put their shields up and they got it tight, they caught it. But again, it stops you from doing anything during the time that the hail's coming in. It's more about battlefield control. It's crowd control.
Yeah.
I
think the dumbest part of the video that he was responding to was the part where he said that one of the problems with armor was that if you got hit really hard, it could dent the armor, and that could like cause bleeding or whatever.
Yeah, but what happens if you got hit and you weren't wearing armor?
Yeah, it was like, but if you're not wearing
your whole
armor,
torso's just gone.
Yeah,
a flail went through your chest.
Yeah, it'll dent your fucking bones. It's like,
it's like, oh, this mace went into and caved my whole chest. Heart's ruptured, lungs are ruptured, can't breathe, can't bleed. But sure, I'm better off than having armor that kind of cut my skin.
Plus, he was like, the strength it would take to bend this typical
would be more than enough
armor,
to just bust your chest in.
Well, yeah, but it was saying it's not a given that hitting someone with a hammer or a mace in the chest would dent the armor. He was like, that would take quite a bit of strength, actually.
Yeah. So and he even pointed out, I think it was like a scene in one of the D&D books where to be able to do that, the guy had to put the other person on the ground first so he could use gravity and the ground was stopping from moving. Because in real life, if you hit somebody wearing armor, something that's has a high tensile strength, they're going to move back with the force.
Yeah.
It's like punching a boxer. If you don't break somebody's jaw because they know to move their head back with the force. You know?
Yeah. He said if you hit a standing person with a mace in the chest and they're wearing armor, they're going to stagger back, and it's probably not going to bend, or enough to hurt them really. But that was a funny video. Yeah.
It was like I almost wanted. I'm glad you brought it up because I almost wanted to like talk about the same shit myself because I get so peeved. Like, I don't care about like fantasy, cartoons, even TV shows for the most part, because it again, it's all fiction. People can bastardize things from the real world. There's a suspension of disbelief. Sometimes the rule of cool, you just do things because they look cool. I didn't give a shit about most of what happened in the Game of Thrones show because like it's a fantasy, whatever. But then you have somebody coming along and try to say like, well, this is how things were in history when it blatantly wasn't. I'm like, that. Ooh.
Yeah. Let me explain to you why millions of people who wore armor were actually stupid and shouldn't have worn it. What?
Yeah. Why we made all these advancements in technology.
Yeah.
We still wear armor. We just wear different kinds. We made Kevlar for a reason because it's just a better armor against what they're getting hit with these days.
Yeah. No, you shouldn't wear a Kevlar vest. It's better if you get shot with that one.
Yeah, just straight to the chest. You're fine.
Yeah.
Don't wear ceramic plate in there just because you think you might be getting hit with a higher caliber bullet. No, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's just going to weigh you down. You dodge the bullet,
That's right. You'll be faster without wearing the armor. Do the Matrix thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's our show. Man, that's a topic I could get heated on.
Yeah, it was a good show, I think. I think we did a good job, Metal.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoy the show. If you like it, please share it with somebody else who might enjoy it. And if you really like it, you can consider doing what Sketchbook did and donating to streamlabs.com/Vomitorium live. Thank you again for filling our monthly hosting fee.
Thanks.
And we will see you guys in the next episode.
See ya. Have a good weekend.